And then there's Chucky. He's dead.
And then, like 3 seconds later,
Chucky's dead.
Oh man, that's funny. They paused for like 10 seconds. No, it was like 5 seconds. Like, donkey.
man, you got some acoustics where you at, bro.
Oh, let me try to match the flavor, though.
Oh, acoustic flavor.
I can't do that.
There's not.
I need a box. Hans, no, Spelunkin's not the time right now.
Don't get lost, bro.
Record without me. Chunky's dead. Don't forget about Chunky.
Oh, my thing reset to like 4. There we go.
There's the big
Wow.
one. Remember Chunky. That's a deep well he's fallen into.
You should do like the Link in Smash Bros. This is like falling off the edge. That was actually pretty good.
All right, enough of that. Welcome to the A4NB4Y podcast, the Legend of Zelda themed podcast where we go chapter by chapter through the game. Last episode, 2 weeks ago, we went over our movie night. We talked about all the different cutscenes in the game and discussed the craziness that was when Zelda done turned into that dragon thing.
Yay.
This week, we're gonna go over the finale of the game. I'm Ryan Fonzie, a draconified demon king, and with me, as always,
Mom Anthony, and I have tears. Tears.
I'm Cameron Hagee, an air purifier machine.
Oh my God.
Can you purify my tears?
Maybe. We'll have to talk about it. Water's difficult.
I'm selling propane and propane products.
That ain't my propane.
Bobby.
All right, so guys, we made it. This is it. This is like the finale, right? It's the finisher. This is the one that we do when we do at the end of the season. And this is one of the craziest endings of any Zelda game.
It was nuts.
It was nuts. What's nuts is I did this months ago, and I watched most of the ending again today to refresh myself on it. That being said, I'm not going to remember the beginning of the cave. I know that we go to the big castle in the sky, but we don't go to the castle part. We jump underneath it and we go into the chasm under the castle in the sky.
We go into the chasm.
The chasm. And there's a few big moments that I remember in this chasm. So this is essentially where Link and Zelda were supposedly at the beginning of the game. It's not the first thing you see when you start jumping down there, though. You got to get through quite a bit of other underground adventure before you get to the murals and all that.
Yo.
And I guess that's where we'll start. I mean, there is a shrine on the way down, just so you have a nice fast travel spot to the entrance of this gauntlet we're about to run. First thing I remember seeing was legs. I don't know about you guys, but
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
When I first got down to that chasm and I saw the hole containing the lakes and all that gloomy doom goom, I was like, oh, this is gonna be fun. And then as I continued going along and I saw a certain somebody, I was like, oh man, this straight up, like Nintendo just took a book out of From Software and made an Elden Ring dungeon. Because that's what this felt like.
There was a lot going on. There was black horriblins, there was silver bokoblins, there was silver moblins, there was the big boy himself, a silver Lionel just chilling down there, guarding the entrance to the next area. There were things you could build, there were things you could blow up, there was a chest or two that you could find. There was so much going on in this little cave of windy windiness to get down to those murals that I kind of got
There was
lost a time
even
or two.
flocks of keys in there, and not just keys, the worst keys,
The
electric
worst.
and frozen keys. Like you could have picked any other keys.
It was the same for the likes.
Yeah.
I distinctly remember a giant squarular staircase that just had Lizalfos on every level for no reason.
Oh, that was fun.
There was that. I'd skipped that.
Right, because you could probably just dive down the center of it, right? Like, why? Yeah, those Lizalfos aren't the keenest. And I the other thing I really remember was that there were these big rooms that had a big old guy on the floor of it. But also it was like a destroyed bridge, and they had a bunch of Zonai parts in the first room, and you could just fly over the entire room and get through it.
Yeah.
I think they were Lionels down there. At this point in the game, I was like, I'm good. I don't need to have a Lionel fight before my final boss. I feel like I'd be wasting some precious resources. I just got done cooking. No, thank you. And I definitely flew right past these.
See, that's why I fought him. I just got done cooking. I had like 36 hearts to recover of gloom. I had 10 full heals plus 5 hearts on top of that, which turns out those really aren't that useful because gloom is really the thing you're fighting against this whole time instead of actual damage. So I decided, you know what, why not? I went in, I took him out. I maybe had to heal like 8 hearts of gloom.
Okay.
I didn't know they were at the bottom of those pits though, because I only fought the one that was like in the caves. I think it was the first one you run into.
What was in the pits? Was it not Lionel?
I don't know. I didn't go down the pits. I flew over the pits.
Oh, okay.
The
Yeah,
pits?
they put a track to launch a glider off of, and then they gave you the wings and all the things you would need to make it fly across the pit. And they put a big old enemy in the pit. You didn't have to fight it. You could just jump over it.
And I think if you walked up close to the edge of it, there was a chance that the thing fell. Because when I was ultra handing the thing I built over to that area, for some reason, the very edge of the area, like the bridge, was something I could highlight with ultra hand, which made me think if I walked on it, it was probably going to be one of those falling platforms.
Gotcha.
To take you down into the pit.
Right.
Definitely was. And I didn't mess with any of that junk. I don't know. I went down in that pit that we were talking about. It was not fun.
What did you fight?
It was some big old nasty gloom hands trying to grab me.
Oh, that's probably why I jumped over it.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, gloom hands? Nah.
So I like ran away, went up to the top of the like bridge on the other side, and then there was a moblin over there, and I was like, I'm gonna try this. So I took a big 2-handed weapon and knocked him down in there. I was hoping like, the gloom hands was like food, and then just started like manhandling them. But no, they're friends. They're friends. They're best friends actually. They know each other's birthdays and everything.
I mean, Ganon made you? Yeah, Ganon made you? Yeah.
I was going to say they do follow the same entity, right? I mean, they're aligned.
I forgot about that and then realized that. And I was like, I was like, now I gotta fight both of them. And I was like, wait, I'm on the other side of that bridge. Nah, bye.
Yeah, I definitely had a moment. I think one of the jumps, because I think there was more than one of these jumps that we had to do. Like I flew over to the other side and like crashed, and then had to do the whole let me lift up my glider, bring it back down, and then recall it and escape this pit real quick before they come over and start attacking. And it worked out.
Yeah, so eventually, once we were done making our way through a couple of these rooms with some pits and some gloom hand enemies down at the bottom of them, we found ourselves in a pretty similar looking staircase.
Mm. Except this staircase is no longer empty like it was at the beginning of the game when Link and Zelda were patrolling it, when Link had 2 rows of hearts and he was a boss.
Mhm.
It is now filled with bokoblins of the highest tier and moth mummy bugs. And not just moth mummy bugs, but the Gibdos were like the best Gibdos.
The ones
I
that
took
like run and crawl and jump at you.
Yeah, I remember
with
taking
wings.
a fire fruit straight to its face and it still survived. And I was like, what?
I one-shot all mine with a fire fruit to the face. I think I was using a bow that had like 40 plus damage, though.
Yeah,
I was using the
you gotta use your
Twilight,
good
bro, my
weapons when
guy.
it's Gibdo time.
I one-shot all of them.
Darn you, Twilight bow.
I eat spicy fruits for breakfast.
But like right after this little room, we get to the mural room. And if you use some bombs to blow up what we couldn't see in the beginning of the game, considering that Link already had like all the stamina and all the hearts, even an impossible number of hearts technically, he didn't have a single bomb, and we could have learned a lot about the rest of this game right then and there if we had a bomb.
Yeah, this is like Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban level like time travel cover up, where if we had known that all of this was going to happen, then it would have been paradoxical. So instead, just as fate would have it, there was no way we could see those murals ahead of time. But they do give some hints as to what happens after that we learn from the memories, I guess I should say. It gives some hints as to things that we now know already.
Yeah, I think the first mural depicted Ganondorf being imprisoned. The second one depicted Zelda having the Master Sword and like going to repair it, and the last one showed Zelda being draconified and flying up into the sky.
Yeah.
It showed the entire story, basically all the key things. Even that imprisoning we learned about in 5 or 6 different areas with no additional information, really.
Right. And it's funny because Zelda seemed to know enough about the imprisoning war to tell that that's what the murals were about, but apparently she did not know how the imprisoning war ended.
Nope.
This was the imprisoning war. Oh, what was that? Well, I'm not really sure what happened, but I know what it's called, and I know that when there's a weird dude floating on a platform with a bunch of gems around him, that's an imprisoning war thing. Like, oh, okay.
Taking her word for it.
But we get through this, learning these cool new details that we've known, or at least seeing the rest of the story in ancient carving form.
Oh, can I interrupt with one thing real quick?
Mm-hmm.
Back when we dropped through the floor in that area with all those Lizalfos, I think it was, like lining the layers of like an apartment building as you drop through a hole right in the middle of it. When you hit the bottom of those stairs, it gives you a message that the power of your sages can no longer reach like this far down, and you lose all of your sages. So you're just Link for a chunk of what we've been talking about.
I do remember that. I mean, that was when it kind of transitioned into like test form, right? And I feel like at a certain point in this dungeon, it became hey, how are your building skills? How are your abilities? Like, how are you at using them? How is your combat? Like, everything became a little bit of a Like, here's a challenge that you've dealt with something very similar a bajillion times, but now that you're in the final run, let's just do a quick skill check.
Yeah, I can see that. It's
What
also
about-
kind of when it transitioned from cave into interior building-esque area.
Yeah. Actually, I even remember there was some like mining sections where you had to blow up rocks in the walls to get deeper in.
Yeah.
So
There was a chest hidden behind some rocks down there too,
yeah.
right towards the end, which funnily enough gave you more bombs.
Just in case you wanted to clear the mural but didn't save the resources.
Yeah. It's like if you only had one bomb, here's 10 more. Or I guess you could just smack it with a heavy weapon too, probably.
Yeah. So we get past these murals and we enter Gloom's lair.
Epic
And
name.
first thing that we do in Gloom's lair is we jump down a big old hole. And this is presumably the hole that was left behind when we first found Ganondorf, and he kind of blew up the whole room. And the castle went up, the ground went down, Zelda went down with it.
This is where the imprisoning war happened.
It is, but now it's just a big hole. So we
Funny story about my way into this hole the first time. I didn't realize it was so far out, and I just kind of jumped, and then Link ragdolled down and lost like 10 hearts. And I set a travel medallion at the top and saved my game. So all I did was just reload my save, but I kind of sat there with like looking at the wall next to me, like I meant to do that.
But when we jump down this chasm successfully, there's a pile of gloom, and next to it is a torch. And this is the torch that Zelda was using at the beginning of the game when she fell.
Sentimental torch.
I know, it's a torch to remind Link of that time when he didn't catch Zelda.
Oh no.
Reinforcing his will to fight.
Right. It's like he's here to make things right, and it's just another like reminder of why we're here in the first place, right? Like we're trying to defeat the Demon King, yes, but we're also still trying to find Zelda. Even though we know that she's a dragon in the sky now. We're trying to find a way to help her. So we continue on this path, and after a few more minor tussles, there is another chasm.
Hey.
And it goes even further down. And at this point, the devs are just showing off the verticality of the game. They're like, in case you didn't think we could go any deeper, here's like what is essentially a descent from the sky to the surface, except you're already underground and you're just going to go a lot further underground. And as you fall, you see this big red platform and a big old red gate kind of leading into the side of the chasm. And it's pretty clear that that's where you're supposed to land because there's really no other ground. And when you do, you get some, I believe there's some dialogue that kind of comes from the gate. I don't remember what it says, if I'm being honest. But I do remember that a bunch of bokoblins start popping out of the redness.
I don't remember there being a dialogue.
Talks, maybe.
I just remember it going into the scene where the bokoblins and the boss bokoblin spawn, and then they go to attack you, and you're like, "Oh no, I'm just me. Whatever will I do alone?"
And then your boy Tulin shows up. Like, didn't you learn anything about the teamwork section of the game?
Oh yeah,
you don't have to do this alone.
Mention that at some point the dudes just disappear halfway through the gauntlet.
We did. Cam made sure to go back and mention it.
I brought it back.
Oh, you got this, man.
Yeah, he set the scene for us like 30 seconds ago.
All right. Well, before we get into that, since we got to the tree here at the bottom, I kind of want to do a little spin with this tree. Because this tree is significant.
Beyblade?
Is the gate a tree?
Yeah, you didn't know, remember? There's like roots and stuff.
I did not realize it was a tree either, honestly.
but that's a good detail to pick up on. I'll let you talk about your tree because I
Right.
didn't even realize.
Yeah. So it actually opens me into the chakras. And it didn't really click for me until when I was actually looking at the chakras, I remembered the tree. It's kind of like a gloom tree, and then the gate is in the middle, and then there's obviously our arena. But yeah, it's like you don't even see like the top of the tree. It's just the roots are going straight up. And I was doing some research. Now, obviously, Ganon stole the time stone and bled it red, kind of like he was a like Jedi turning into a Sith, like he was just bleeding that secret stone. And it turned red, which I was doing the research, and it basically aligned with the root chakra.
Okay.
So where I'm going with that is the root chakra is grounding. And when the root chakra is, I guess, like blocked or negated, um, you could spread your roots, evil roots. If you have a blocked root chakra, it's the basis of your body. You could not only spread this evil throughout your body, but you could also spread it throughout your life and others around you. And if you think about Ganondorf, I mean, this is just, it speaks for itself. He was spreading gloom all around the dang place in Hyrule. I mean, this man popped up and was just like, it's Gloomfest because we're spreading that. He was taking his chakra was messed up. He was evil and he was spreading the roots everywhere. And when I think about where you go in to fight him, it's within this like chasm where there's these giant roots leading to the arena that you eventually go in there for. And I thought it was really cool. That kind of is like symbolism.
Was Yunobo's orange in this game?
Mhm. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. He had the stone of fire that was orange.
Yeah, I don't remember what we talked about with him at this point.
I don't remember. He had the sacral chakra.
Oh, that's odd. That's an odd one for him to have. Okay.
Yeah. Which actually really makes sense because he also he had like the belt, like the WWE wrestling gauntlet.
Mm.
And then Raru, he has obviously the third eye chakra. I mean, where do you think I was going with that? We've seen him use it before. He has the third eye chakra. There's not much to say. He's got the third eye. I mean, he's wisdomatic.
Humble
Anyone
brag.
who has this chakra awakened is very wise, has the right goals in mind, is very in tune with themselves. They symbolize protection. They symbolize noblish oblige. We've basically talked about this. And I don't think there's really much else to kind of say about that. There was no really blockage of Raru. He didn't have a moment of like difficulty that kind of reflects the secret stone being the chakra necessarily. It's kind of just like rejection of the greater vision, but he didn't really have that. He kind of was all for the greater vision, so his chakra was never really blocked. He kind of
Maybe
was
his
already awakened.
maybe his one tiny mistake was not being violent when he actually needed to stop Ganondorf before he did the tragedy that lasted for who knows how many thousands of years. That one moment of hesitation that even Ganondorf pointed out as a weakness was kind of like his one mistake, but whether you could even call that a mistake, like he was trying to give Ganondorf a chance, but at the same time it did lead to major tragedy in the end. So there might be a little something to ruminate on with like that really intense decision with multiple kingdoms at stake and all that.
Yeah, I can definitely see that.
Yeah, I mean, the chakra discussion gets a little bit confusing to me. I mean, I know that because there's like 7 main ones that are in just, if you just look up chakras, so like they just always come up. But we have 5 sages, right? but then we have like this weird cyclical pattern with the light and time chakras that kind of get bounced around between future Zelda, past Zelda, Sonya, Ganondorf. And like that part gets really kind of muddled. And then I mean,
So
they
I
do
figured
change
it out.
colors and everything. Okay. What'd you figure out?
So there is seven secret stones, right? And obviously with Zelda going back in time, Zelda's. So I think misspoke earlier when I originally. I think I went over Riju. I was talking about the stone of lightning. And I don't want to get into that right now, but I think I went with the solar plexus for her, and that's actually Zelda. And there's actually 8 chakras. If you, it gets really convoluted, but there's an 8th chakra. That one's actually Minoru's, and the Sahasrara chakra, which is the top, the Nagan chakra. That one actually belongs to Riju. And the reason I say the 8th chakra is Minoru is because it is the soul chakra. It's of this, you're just like not part of this world. You can go between worlds. I mean, it just speaks for itself with that. And then Zelda is the solar plexus chakra, which also super resembles everything Zelda is for. Every single decision she's taken in Breath of the Wild 2. Low self-esteem, low confidence, negative self-image, questioning your ability or believing you are not good enough, difficulty in trusting others, decisions for you, feeling stuck, victim mentality. I feel like this was kind of more in line with her father in Breath of the Wild. And we already like remember that journey. She's pretty much like doing that whole journey of going to each spring and not really being able to believe she's good enough or is going to awaken her power. And then in this, when you have awakened your solar plexus chakra, you become confident and you have a certain level of like, I need to do this. Like, I know what I need to do. You become aware of like a higher purpose, kind of like the third eye chakra. And you're like, this is my decision. Like, this is my determination. You gotta get some like awakened feeling. And I just think of she turned into a dragon because that's what she needed to get done. Like, she knew she could do it. She was confident. And it's pretty much like a yellow light power too, like their association with like light and time as well, this chakra. So it's just straight up Zelda. We don't know much about Sonya though, so I can't really talk on her. She was just nice. She was just that nice lady, man. Yeah, so it's interesting. This is kind of the wrap up. Like Zelda, the Nintendo just doing these things, man.
They've been doing them for a long time.
Yeah, so it's nice to see like all the chakras kind of getting play and like building the characters. Like they based the characters' whole lives on the chakras almost. At least their motivations from the both games. I mean, they even went as far back like the solar plexus chakra basically talked about her entire journey from Breath of the Wild to TOTK. So it's just really interesting to see Nintendo just pulling all these stops here like that.
Yeah.
But that was what I was going with the tree. The tree is evil, and Ganondorf spread his roots all throughout Hyrule. And it was just super interesting to see with the root chakra and like everything coincided with that tree down there and his evil. And it's probably where he's been this entire game, just culminating in evil gloom because he kind of left us alone to just do our own thing while he was down here.
Yeah, we're gonna get to him pretty soon.
It almost kind of sounds to me like the root chakra is like what's talked about as like a foundation for someone's life. Like if you have a good foundation, then a lot of the stuff coming forth from it will be good. But if you have a bad foundation, then a lot of the things coming forth from it will be bad.
That's pretty much what the root chakra like goes over is
Yeah.
It's your foundation for life. It's your root. It's who you are.
Yeah, it's also like basic needs and survival. Like it's so like for Ganondorf, I mean like he's down here just trying to come back to life basically. Like he's reviving himself actively throughout the entire game. Trying to spread his evil and all that, but for the most part his real thing is to try to get back into power, you know? He's trying to become his former self.
Yeah, and he ain't shy about saying it neither.
Yeah. But before we get to him, we have a little bit of business to take care of out on this platform.
We do. We
Because
have
this
Gauntlet.
This tree gate will not just open up. We gotta fight some stuff first. So right about when we land, we almost got into this. A bunch of bokoblins appear, and then suddenly you see one just get wrecked by Tulin, and he's like, "Hey, you don't have to fight alone, right?" And then they all come down, all the sages that you couldn't reach before, appear to aid you in this fight, and they all have their own little quotes about what they're here for and what they're doing.
And they all have a little zoom in and flashy secret stone, a little cutscene to intro them.
Yeah,
I love Sidons.
he
He knows how to work the camera.
He always does, man.
No, I think he just says like, "I'm here to help my best friend" or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
I like Unobos because he actually is brave. He's like, today I'm here to represent my ancestors. I was like, you go.
I think there was something along the lines of like, because Tulin basically said you don't have to do it alone, which calls back to his teamwork stuff. Unobos talks about his ancestors, which is kind of like how the Gorons have been traditionally just a very stable and, foundational member race of Hyrule. Like they've been consistent just across every game, pretty much.
Eating rocks and rolling.
Has not changed much at all. Sidon says he's come to, he's like, we're gonna protect Hyrule together, which is a callback to like your friendship with him, and how he sees you as his like best friend and kind of a peer, even though he's royalty and you're not.
And then Riju comes out saying how she, the Gerudo, still owe Link a debt of gratitude, so she's there to repay that.
Yeah.
So kind of like the friendship that originally was wanted between Hyrule and the Gerudo way back when Ganondorf ruined it and threw everything into whack is like now back on track, kind of.
Yeah, Link's been known to be that unifying factor between Hyrule and the Gerudo. I
He's
thought
a
it was
bridge.
cool that it was interesting that she tries to say something personal in what seems like a pretty non-personal way. She's like the Gerudo owe you for your assistance, so you can count on me. It's like that first thing sounded transactional, like
Pretty
we
much.
owe you, but then it kind of turned into, but this is about you and me, and I'm here for you.
It almost felt like once we're done with this transaction, you're not coming back to Gerudo Town, Link.
Yeah. Nah.
And then I don't remember what Mineru says. I mean, I think she says she's there to atone.
Yeah,
Yeah.
her past.
Mistakes.
She's there to make up for the mistake she made before or something like that. Like this time's going to be different kind of thing.
Yeah. So
And then you go into a big gauntlet.
Takes from all of our characters, and then we get into the gauntlet. How did you guys handle the gauntlet?
Full melee.
Full melee?
Full Hyrule Warriors just went right in.
Yep.
All right. So, do you guys remember when we saved Llewellyn Village and I built a battle mech that just kind of laser beamed all the Lizalfos off the beach?
Oh, no.
I brought him back. I've had him saved in my favorites for a long time. And I summoned my boy. And he put in the work, let me tell you. I'm pretty sure he had the highest body count of anybody on that battlefield. My dude was not taking prisoners.
Ganondorf's like watching this battle from inside his chambers, just like, No one told me this boy was also a scientist.
Yeah.
He's an engineer over here. I can just imagine it being animated where Link's like in a beach chair sipping on a drink while the mechs are fighting for him.
Just laser beams and cannon shots going off. He's dangerous to fight around. I'm not gonna lie, because he'll just if you're trying to fight something, he'll just shoot through you to get to the enemy. He does not care.
Oof. Sounds about right.
Zona devices are not toys, kids. Used with adult supervision only. But this was a fun gauntlet. I mean, it starts out with bokoblins. I know there's
one or two boss bokoblins.
Yeah, there's a Lizalfos wave. There's a Moblin wave. There's a Gibdo wave. Gets intense.
Yeah. So after like I think it was the first two waves, I just kind of let loose on the Muddle Buds.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I just let everyone kind of fight each other. It was no longer a fight. I think when it came down to like maybe just me and the last Lizalfos and Moblin, but yeah, like that whole thing was easy after I unloaded Muddle Buds. That's kinda how I went forward.
It was even pretty easy for me that used absolutely no items aside from I think I fused one thing to a new sword in the middle of combat. I just went full melee. It still wasn't too bad.
Yeah, I mean, all the enemies on this platform they get distracted by the sages and stuff, and they're not like.
Yeah, there's like never more than two of them.
Did anyone check how much damage our Master Sword did at this point? Because there's like a little notification that says it was restored, but I never checked.
I didn't check it. No.
Nah.
It was like when you were diving
in the heat
down.
of battle. I'm not looking at stats, my guy.
Like, Master Sword's power has been rejuvenated, and I was like, oh boy, I bet it does more damage. But I think it was just maybe that it didn't break.
It definitely didn't break.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, I definitely didn't have that problem from this point forward.
I think we go through 4 waves, and then the tree's like, no, something else happens.
So we do that. All of a sudden, you see Colgera show up, and at first I'm like, "Oh snap, we got to fight a Colgera." And then the Goma, the Red Rock Goma, shows up, and then the squid shows up, which is a laugh because why are you just an octopus?
Why are you here?
Right, ridiculous. And then Queen Gibdo shows up, and I'm like, this is a bit much. I'm like,
I was okay with the first three.
Yeah. Like, we could probably do that, but with Queen Gibdo on the field, I'm like, I don't know anymore.
Yeah, same feeling.
And then the thing you fight in the Spirit Temple pops up too.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, does it for real?
Yeah.
Oh,
it's 5 of them.
Was it the one provided by the Yiga, or was it the one from the Spirit Temple? Do you think?
I think it was the one from the Spirit Temple. Yeah.
Oh man, those Yiga are complete failures. All right, well, that would have been cool lore if it had been the one from the Yiga. If you just saw like Koga sitting on it, like, yo, what up?
Right.
Anyway,
so this is the part where if you didn't complete or you didn't get any of the sages, you would have to fight these bosses right here before you go in to fight Ganondorf.
Is that
yeah, it is. It's like in Breath of the Wild when you had to fight the bosses before Ganon. If you skip doing those dungeons, you have to fight all 5 of them again if you didn't get any of the sages.
Oh wow.
But if you got all of them, like all of us did, you don't got to fight none of them. The sages are like, yo, we got this, boy. You go on. You got your fight. We got ours. They kind of charge off into their one-on-one against their respective area's boss. And then it looks like a cave-in happens, and you're like, did everybody just die? But then you're like, nah, it's Zelda. It's fine.
Wait, hold on. So, like, you have to fight 1v5? If you don't do any sages,
you fight them all one after another. So I think you fight them in order too.
Gotcha. That makes a lot more sense.
Insane if you had to do 1v5.
If you you didn't play the game right. Get out of here, loser.
That's exactly what that would be saying if that's how it went.
I mean, you can definitely just speed run it if you don't want to fight them. Or if you don't want to like go through the whole game, you can just speed run it, go straight here and just fight all 5 of them.
Yeah.
Fighting any of them without the corresponding sage sounds terrible.
That's true.
Which is probably the point. Still meant to be kind of a roadblock, but I mean they are all defeatable without the sages, but especially
you're
with
also
Colgera,
you're gonna need to go out and get like some stuff though. Like you're gonna need some water fruits to put out the water temple guy's mud. So you're gonna have to prepare beforehand if you don't have them. It definitely does put like a little bit of a block in the way of speedrunners. Now that I've beaten it, I want to watch a couple speedruns and see how they go about it.
Yeah, me too.
That sounds
Maybe we could have an episode where we watch a speed run.
a speedrun commentary episode.
Yeah.
That'd be fun.
Right? I don't think they're very long. Maybe a half hour at most. I'll double check, but
All right, maybe that can be part of our mid-season episode. All right, cool. But so we do get this cutscene. They're like, "Go on without us," and then the rock collapses, like you said, and they're fine. But we don't know that yet, because we are too busy entering Ganondorf's lair, and he's like chilling in his bath. But then he gets up.
He's very
Still
chilling.
bony.
And he's still looking like a zombie. And he's acting all disappointed. He's like, this world was supposed to be all dark, but instead it's got this insufferable light everywhere. And I'm like, yeah, I kind of did all the light roots in the depths. My bad. And then he's like, I wish I had a more worthy opponent to fight. Everybody who's fighting us up on the surface is just a bunch of cowards who don't know what they're doing. And I'm like, why you gotta talk about the monster control team like that? That's not very fair.
Or maybe he was secretly talking about the Yiga. Look at these guys.
Yeah, I had a moment of like, are you talking about your own troops? Because they're not good for the most part.
Yeah, have you seen your Lionels? They kind of just go out in the middle of nowhere and stand there.
Yeah, they're not actually taking over anything. I've never seen one fight anything other than me. And
Yeah,
then
not a
they're
Lionel.
optional.
It's actually the Bokoblins, I feel like, that do the most work because you actually find them fighting like villagers and humans that you should save.
Right.
Everything else just kind of on its own.
I can't imagine villagers taking on anything bigger than the Bokoblins. So I mean,
Yeah, they
No,
they wouldn't last long enough for us to help them.
Villager versus Lionel.
I would love to see the whole
Get your
like,
pot lid.
the whole monster control team against one Lionel.
No, you know who I want to fight a Lionel is that dang researcher who's a jerk.
Caleb?
I
You're
want
talking about Caleb?
yes, I want him to fight a Lionel, and I want to watch it with popcorn.
I mean, my dude can take lightning strikes to the glasses. I don't know.
Put him in the arena.
He might be okay. I don't know. But then he does a big gloom splash on the ground and emerges from it a reformed Ganondorf, a rehydrated Ganon. We finally got him. He's here. He's
Got
wearing
them electrolytes.
He's in the flesh, literally now.
He's wearing like a sweet half robe thing, and he's got a katana. He's ready. He's ready for business.
Yeah, when I saw
And
him,
he says,
oh, I was gonna say when I saw him and I saw his katana and his hairdo, I was like, this dude is a straight up Ronin. That's what he reminded me of.
he's got such a tood on him and such an ego. Because like one of the first things he says to Link is, don't avert your eyes. You're witnessing the revival of a king. And I'm like, bro, there ain't no mirrors in here for you to admire yourself in. Shut up. Like this guy.
You gotta get that lunker alarm.
He is so full of himself.
Yeah, Ganondorf would be the guy like grunting and dropping the weights at the gym to try to show off.
It's true.
Mhm.
No, but yeah, I mean I think his design, aside from his ego and everything, the character reminds me a lot of like Wind Waker Ganondorf, oddly enough, except better looking in general because he's not a cartoon as much. I mean, he still is kind of a cartoon, but
Mhm.
not a cell shaded cartoon. It's kind of like the desert summer version of Wind Waker Ganondorf.
New outfit.
Quite a bit, yeah.
But yeah, he's definitely got that calm, cool, collected, but still very much so evil aura around him. Where he's not like Ocarina of Time kind of Ganon.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he he comes at us, bro. And I'm not gonna lie, this phase 1 is a nice little warm up. You kind of
Mhm.
get an idea of what you're up against. I mean, he's got a similar pattern to Phantom Ganon that we fought a bunch of times. Except he moves even slower and his attacks are even stronger.
And
So-
he just has the ability to like transmute any weapon he wants in the blink of an eye.
Yeah, when he switches over to the club, he gets pretty destructive.
Yeah, except the club is nicely enough the easiest to dodge and get a flurry rush on.
Yeah, I never
it's
actually got hit by the club.
It's the one that I think that at some point he'll just yell and splash the whole room with gloom, basically. So you just gotta kind of give him some space for a second.
Yeah. Later on, he sends waves out with it.
Yeah.
So yeah, this phase is pretty cake. You can kind of just hit him. He doesn't stop you from hitting him and dodging him. Flurry rush, he drops pretty easy. But then he gets a lot of health.
Yeah. So you get him down through this phase, and you're like, oh, that was kind of underwhelming. But then he decides that no, you don't understand. I'm actually the Demon King. And he turns into a more demise-looking Ganondorf. Kind of like the one we saw in the past when he first got the Secret Stone. Like he activated the Secret Stone, basically.
He gets that crimson cloak and like flame-like aura around him.
And his health bar extends all the way to the right of the screen.
I thought it was going to go off the screen as kind of a joke, and it stopped right before the end, and I'm like, okay.
I mean, it still was kind of a joke.
Yeah.
Because they just off-centered it. Like, they could have just put it in the center. And it wouldn't have been... Like, it wouldn't have called out that he had more health that way. So it was funny
silly
the way they did it. They just
because
left it.
His name was centered with the screen, and the first letter being the G, the health bar started just a little to the left of the G, and then it extended to the point where it went like 3 Ganondorf whole word lengths past it. It was so off-centered, it was funny. It was like when you go into Excel and you just realign the text all the way to the right above the left, all the way above the health bar. It was all the way to the left side.
Yeah.
I also love what he says between phases too. Ganondorf had like a moment of real recognizes real. He's like, oh, what a rush. And he's like, I almost forgot the thrill of battle. That feeling as blood surges in my veins. Ooh, baby. And then he's like, I'm not even nearing the limits of my power. He had like a Dragon Ball Z moment before he turned into Demise and got that.
I guess he really thought it was going to be an easy fight. I mean, that's what kind of how he introduced himself in the beginning. Like, oh, I wish I had someone more worthy to fight. And then you kind of beat up on him, and he's like, oh, I guess this is a fight. This is pretty good.
Yeah, pretty much. He was walking the parking in the beginning, and he's like, oh, gloves coming off.
Yeah. So as the second phase begins, Ganondorf starts doing some shadow clone jutsu type stuff, but don't worry, because Tulin comes in once again with the, hey, sorry it took us so long. And one by one, the sages kind of trickle into the fight to help you out.
Yeah, I was scared at first.
They kind of take on one clone each.
Yeah. Makes it a
I was
fair
scared
fight.
too. I was like, do I have to like hit each of these once and take them all down first? And then Tulin comes in and they all flood in. And I'm like, oh, you guys just going to handle them?
Yeah. Yeah. This game's about family and teamwork and making the dream work. You know what I'm saying?
Family.
I don't need a master sword. I got family.
No, no, not
I'm
Link
talking
Diesel.
about Link Diesel.
Oh goodness. All right. So you go through this fight. It's very similar to the last one, just more Ganondorf's, more gloom. There's
does-
some charge attacks now.
Yeah, each one of his different weapons has a different ability it shoots out. So when he switches to the bow, I never really figured out how to get around the bow one. Because he summons like a bunch around you and they all just kind of start homing in on you in the middle. And it's really fast before there's no gap in between them that you can get out.
Yeah.
And I got hit by that one every single time.
I
Which
think
one
there
was the
is
one
a
that the bow-
way to walk. If you
managed-
get out of the circle before it closes, it will just close wherever it originally targeted.
Yeah.
So you can kind of slip between them that way.
Oh, was that the one that had like the 20 gloom beams like kind of surrounding you in a circle?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, you just walk to the outside, my guy.
Nah, I could never get out of that.
Kind of like
Ah.
the one of the Sage sisters from back in the day.
And when he pulls out the club, he sends waves out from him, like covering the whole room. So the farther away you are, the more distance between them and the easier it is to slide in between them.
Yeah.
When he pulls out the spear, he summons 3 little homing orbs you can block with your shield.
Yeah, one of the things about those, I know for the orb specifically, but I think on a bunch of his abilities this happens. Ganondorf's got levels of gloom. So there's I stepped in the gloom for too long and now this heart is grayed out, but I can recover it with a Sunderlion mode. But then he can also, if he gets a good direct hit on you, can just straight up shatter the heart right off the screen. And you can just lose hearts.
So I thought I saw that happen to one of my hearts, but I wasn't sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
can-
he did
you can straight up
obliterate
just
one of my hearts.
Lower your max health on you during the course of the fight. I mean, if you go in with plenty of health, it usually isn't an issue, but yeah, it is pretty devastating to be like, I'm gonna just lower your stats real quick. I know you spent the whole game getting them back, but yeah, nah.
And then you take him down to half health. We get into the third phase.
Right, and half health, just to be clear, being like his regular health bar. You take away the part that extended,
much.
right? And he releases a giant shockwave that completely knocks out all of the sages and all of his own clones, I guess.
Well, he absorbs all the clones, and that's what gives him the power to create that wave.
Gotcha. So everybody's kind of unconscious around the outside of the room, except for you and Ganondorf. And he gives the Matrix like finger wave of "come here."
Yeah, he waves you in, like taunting, challenging you with a smirk on his face.
And this was, yeah.
No,
Probably
go
gonna
ahead.
say the same thing. It's just
Probably.
by far the hardest part of this fight because this man has learned ninja reflex, and he also knows Link's secret family technique of the flurry rush.
Well, yeah. So he doesn't do the flurry rush part as much, but he does do perfect dodges now.
Mm-hmm.
He's done this since the beginning of this phase, like even not when you get him down to half health, like even before that. But he'll do it and then he'll just go into a regular attack and you can even take advantage of that and dodge it to get more damage out on him. But now he'll dodge an additional time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it becomes a a flurry rush off in a way, like a perfect dodge off, where you gotta like dodge one of his attacks and then go in for an attack, and he'll probably dodge that one and go in for an attack, and then you gotta dodge that one and do the same thing until you out dodge him, and then you can start smacking him for real.
Yeah, it's always the same number. You dodge
Or
him, and then he dodges you, and then you go in, and that's when you hit him.
yeah, or if you perfect parry him, that's easier because he doesn't have a recourse for that.
See, I totally forgot that parrying existed, so I didn't parry a single time, even though afterwards I read somewhere that kind of makes it a lot easier.
Yeah, I mean, easier in a sense. I mean, you still gotta time it and everything, and it's a lot harder to time perfect parries than it is the perfect dodges.
True.
The window's just a lot smaller in most cases, so I think that's why they didn't have him fight back against that. My question is like, is this a skill that he's had since before the fight started, or does he learn it from Link? You know, this whole
He
like, oh, I
learns
can
as he
dodge like
fights.
that too.
He's a Saiyan.
I mean, he does say it's not even at its full potential power yet, halfway through the fight. So
Yeah, and he was apparently skilled enough. He was 1v5ing the original sages back then and barely broke a sweat as they just got destroyed. So he probably has been able to do this.
he's got that Goku in him.
He got that dog in him. Or
I also
that
don't
pig
know
in him, I guess.
why Nintendo did this, but when you start the fight, his title
I got
card
that hog
is...
in me. Sorry.
The hog.
Oh my gosh. When you start the fight, his title card is Menace Unleashed. And then I think his name is still Demon King Ganondorf. And then when you break him into phase 2 as his demise, his title card changes to Master of the Secret Stone. And I'm like, why? I mean, I guess I get it because he used the Secret Stone's power to transform, but I'm pretty sure that was just the gloom. I don't know if the Secret Stone maybe is just gloom. I don't know.
I think it's like nobody else even got to that. Like nobody else had a transformation with the stone. Ganondorf was the only one that powered up with the stone, so to speak. So I feel like that maybe was how he mastered it. Nobody else could do that.
I think Rauru technically, if I take like the basis of chakra like into it, like he opened his third eye. I never saw Minoru do none of that.
Yeah,
So maybe Rauru had an awakening too.
Rauru kind of did that in the final moment before he sealed him, but
Yeah.
Ganondorf was like on a different level where he was just in that state, fighting in it for like minutes and minutes and minutes. Rauru was like he activated it and it was just enough to finish it, kind of thing. He didn't go into it to fight with. He went into it as like the last ditch effort. So in a way, even though Ganondorf didn't have it for very long and he was the bad guy, he kind of learned how to use it better than all the other people could, like almost instantly, and got all the power out of it, which might just speak to like, you know, the nature of bad in and of itself, where it always seeks after power. So if somebody was going to get the stone and immediately go, hey, how much power can I draw out of this thing? It would probably be the bad guy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just subjugate the stone a bit, basically.
Yeah. So we beat this master of the stone, and he gets so mad that he cuts his arm off and then grafts it with a dragon head.
He
That's
starts breathing fire out of his dragon head and
says forefathers or witness me, basically. No, it's a different game, but he does have a similar kind of thing going on where he's like,
he's a sore loser.
He's like, I'll give up my body and my soul, my very self, sacrifice it all to shroud this world in darkness and defeat you, blah, blah, blah. And my dude rips the secret stone out of his own forehead and then basically swallows his whole forearm because he doesn't want to mess this up and accidentally inhale the thing.
He shoves it halfway down his throat with his arm. Just
drops it into his stomach. You know, sometimes I take pills like that. Just straight up,
Whole
like,
forearm.
When I'm feeling freaky.
Sometimes I don't wanna risk it with the water. I don't wanna like be like, oh man, I might just like gag on this. Let me just real quick. Let me just snake this joint.
I totally won't gag shoving my whole arm down my throat instead. That'll be so much better.
Yeah, I mean, at least then I know it's going down the right tube. You know what I'm saying?
You know what I'm saying?
And he has a draconification. He does a Dragendorf, and
He bites Link and takes him with him.
yeah,
Yeah, and someone, I don't even know who it was. I don't remember the voice, but someone yelled Link as Ganondorf grabbed him. And I'm like, what are
I
you
think
doing?
Tulin.
I think it was
Like-
Tulin, yeah.
Help, brother.
You know who's not in the next part of the fight? It's Tulin.
You know who could be?
Tulin.
The one guy who like could easily be in the next part of the fight.
And whose
Fly
ability
out of
would
the
be
hole.
really useful, actually.
Tulin saw the dragon, was like, yeah, no, I'm going to sit down here and pretend I'm still broken.
Pretend I'm still broke.
I mean, maybe he was. I don't know.
But yeah, you get taken to the skies where everything looks pretty bleak. That is until the draconified Zelda shows up and does a fake out. Like they like play a game of chicken. But right at the last second when Demon Dragendorf comes over and tries to bite, she just kind of like jukes him out to the left, and the whole point was for him to open his mouth so Link could fall out. And then she like kind of like flies around him because she's been flying for a lot longer and is better at it. And just like saves Link. And then you guys kind of have this moment where, she flies up into the air, the Dragendorf comes up behind and like pulls out a head just to try to get in the way, and then you have this big face off. Link draws his sword and they get ready for this fight.
She's also like terribly smaller compared to him. Like,
Yeah,
it was
he's
almost
massive.
funny how small she is, and I feel like she's the size of just the other dragons, like Farosh and
Yeah,
Din and all them.
It's like if you put a good-sized earthworm up next to like a snake.
Yeah.
yeah, it is a wild difference.
But that difference don't really matter because Zelda's more here to just transport us.
See, if Ganondorf wasn't underground the whole time, he would know what kind of beast Link is when he has his glider suit on. Because this whole strat of I'm gonna be a dragon and that's how I'm gonna win. I'm like, dude, you don't know what you just signed up for.
You just
You
played
would think-
yourself.
You would think like any of his army or even Felda would tell him like, yeah, nah, this dude's a beast with that glider. Like, he goes from the sky to the ground, back to the sky with his dang glider.
Yeah. But this was the I mean, at this point we've actually defeated the final boss, and this is more of the cinematic ending. So this fight isn't terribly difficult, but it is the most beautiful thing to watch and to play. And you feel epic and heroic the whole time you're doing it. You just kind of Superman
Yeah.
around and destroy piecemeal this dragon. So I guess just to give the rundown I'm guessing if you're listening to this podcast, you've already played this section. But if not, what happens is Zelda always tries to keep the high ground at the start while you're riding her, so that you can then jump down and try to get onto the back of the demon dragon.
Which is actually a bad idea.
Okay.
If you walk on top of him, he's constantly gloomifying you, which might not be too bad for guys who have full gloom resistance armor, but for guys who don't have any gloom resistance armor like moi, it is an absolutely awful idea to try to walk on him.
Yeah, you want to be pretty accurate with your landing spot, because then you'll have enough time to do some damage before you leave the dragon, and because if you don't want to get gloom, you're gonna have a very limited time. Yeah, I mean, you can do some ranged attacks. They're not quite as fast.
I disagree.
I mean, maybe if you fuse some good stuff to your bows.
With my Lionel bow triple shot, this was the perfect time to use my 65 Gibdo bones, which have a massive amount of damage, but they break right away. What could be more perfect on an arrow? It was like 4 or 5 shots each to destroy each weak point because 3 arrows with that big of a damage coming off of them was destroy. I didn't land on him again after I'm like, oh, I'm gonna take gloom damage. We playing this from the sky.
Yeah. Yeah.
like,
So
And I was so happy I had the glide armor too. The glide armor made it so easy to move around.
Yeah, the glide armor is king on this one. You
So
literally
king.
become a superhero through the skies in this dragon. I mean, you know how back in Star Fox 64, you get to the Andros battle and it's just a face shooting some squares at you and you just gotta kind of dodge around them. I feel like what?
I was like, that's kind of this.
It's kind of this. Nintendo uses that boss battle quite a bit. Kind of like how Bongo Bongo, like the hand boss, was also in like Mario 64. Like they reuse bosses or concepts for bosses. And this is one of those because that's the only thing that the Demon Dragon does is it kind of spits some gloom fireballs out. But it's pretty easy to just swerve them even if you are in the line of fire, but most of the time you won't even be in the line of fire, so it's that's just part of the cinematic nature of the fight. It's just like, oh, look at all this stuff he's doing, except it's not a problem.
It was a non-issue.
Right. So I think there's like 4 or 5 of these little targets on its back that you got to go around and destroy, whether you want to land on the dragon or not. That's the game. Every time you fall off the demon dragon, don't worry, there's a really cool mechanic where Zelda comes and picks you back up and carries you back to the top. In fact, while you're going down to Demon King Ganondorf, Dragondorf, Zelda will straight up just fly even lower just to get ready to catch you. And if you're wondering where she is because you're like sitting on your hang glider, like what's going on? She only activates when you get below a certain point. So it's actually better if you just dive if you know that you need her again.
Yeah. Every time I took out a weak point, I just dove and had her elevate me back on up.
Yeah. I guess a personal story about this. This was a fight that I kind of had spoiled for me, but in a confusing way. Being online, seeing short form video, whether it was a YouTube short or a Facebook reel or a TikTok or whatever. I ran into a lot of videos that started with showing the Zelda dragon flying directly upward through like a red sky and a health bar at the top of the screen that said, Demon Dragon. And I never actually saw the Demon Dragon because I would scroll by and like try to avoid seeing anything more in the video. And my assumption was that fake Zelda, because at this point I had already figured out about the whole Zelda draconifying thing. I thought that fake Zelda also draconified somehow. And I was like, there's a demon version of the good dragon. What is this? And that, though that may have been a very interesting story point, that is not what this is at all. But I kind of prefer what it actually is. And it was just a really cool scene. That being said, I should probably mention the red sky bit. Once you destroy all of the weak spots on the demon dragon's back, it gets a new weak spot right on its forehead.
Yeah.
And during this part, the whole sky turns red and there's a huge blood moon just out in the sky. And it's bigger than the other blood moons you've seen. And when you're flying back up on Zelda, the camera basically goes to it so you can see just how amazing this whole scene is. I think I took a bunch of screenshots at this point because it was just too much. I was like, this is incredible.
I actually got a really cool screenshot of At the beginning of the fight where the demon dragon, he's busting through the chasm. He actually goes like straight through Hyrule Castle. We didn't actually mention that, but he completely wrecked the castle. I mean, the castle is gone, but it made for a cool photo. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think I have a few of the Blood Moon too, and I actually have one of Link on his head at this point.
There's a bunch of cool scenes. I kind of wanted to mention this. I forgot to mention it before. But the music in this whole series of events that we've been talking about tonight is kind of crazy as well. This fight when you're in the sky kind of flying around, there's like this really cool, I think it's pronounced shamisen. Like it's like a Japanese stringed instrument, the one that has the two strings and a pick, just kind of like jamming in the background of the music. And it makes the whole scene just super epic. And then there was one other song that I remember. It wasn't during the actual Ganondorf fight, but the gauntlet that we land on when we're talking about the platform with the tree. There's some other stringed instruments that actually sound like they're bowed instruments, like a violin or something like that. And it's like maybe a half step away from a fiddle. Like it seems almost like dance music at that point. And it's also just makes the fight way better. So just wanted to shout out those two songs. I have no idea how to even describe them any more than what I just said, but the music and the sound design in this finale run is incredible.
Yeah, I remember hearing an Urhu, which is like by far one of my favorite instruments. It's also another, I don't know if it's like Japanese or Chinese, but oh man, it was on point. It was key. It was choice.
Nice.
What?
So we go after this forehead, which is very much how we've defeated Ganondorf in a few other games. I think ever since Ocarina of Time, where he kind of stabs him in the nose, they've kind of moved it to the forehead since then. Because I know that Wind Waker for sure was the forehead gem, and then Twilight Princess, they kind of did a replay of the forehead gem. I think even in Skyward Sword, they did some forehead gem stuff. Like it wasn't a gem, I think it was a scar or something like that. But we've seen this move quite a number of times, except this time it's a dragon and the gem's about as big as you are.
Yeah.
And you do a Shadow of Colossus stab. You get on his forehead, you hit him a bunch of times, and then you get into a cutscene where it says, press Y to do the final strike. But Link is for sure holding on to like the hair of this dragon and has the sword up in the air, just like if you played Shadow Colossus, it's like his signature move. And just jams the Master Sword right into the dragon's face. And so we get to see the demon dragon fly up into the air. A bunch of lights start shooting out of him like a classic Zelda boss defeat screen. But instead of him like disintegrating or burning, he like mushroom clouds.
Yeah, he turns into like a particle cannon from outer space.
Right. And then there's like smoke rings and then just a little column of smoke at the end.
Yo.
And then the mission statement, defeat Ganondorf, gets a little completed check.
Yeah, that felt really out of place to me. Like there was a later one that felt really well placed in, but this one, like it was like this really cool scene of Link riding on Dragon Zelda right in front of the screen, and after the giant epic particle cannon explosion, the little smoke, it just pops up. You defeated Ganon. It's like, really? You don't like that? That's what that was. That whole big awesome thing. Thanks for confirming that. That's what had. Like it just it felt out of place.
So what's even better about that is that when you start the game back up, on your save file, you don't have that checked. Because I went back and it still says destroy Ganondorf. And it's like, why did you do that at the end then?
But you do get info card about Ganondorf.
You do.
Like when you restart the game back up, it's like, oh, like you have a new profile in your Purapad. I'm like, what?
I wanted Ganondorf's outfit. I should have gotten his outfit.
Nah, man, just wait for the DLC that's not coming out.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think that whoever was responsible for the long health bar probably had something to do with the timing of that defeat Ganondorf statement and the other one we're going to talk about in just a second here. Because it comes across as very cheesy and very much like, hey, just a reminder, you're playing a video game. Like,
Yeah, right.
oh, okay, thanks.
Took me out of the moment.
Thanks for letting me know.
1 out of
Give
10.
me that immersion bag.
It's just, I don't know. It's funny, but that's what I thought. I think they were just trying to be a little bit humorous with it and just try to keep things a little bit lighter and maybe even help the tone change from the previous scene to this next one. Because now that we've defeated the Demon King, there's only one mystery left to solve, and we're going to solve it almost immediately. So Link flies off. Now that the blood moon is over, the sun can rise again. So we're flying towards the sunrise, and suddenly Link's arm starts acting up. Some green dots start going towards Dragon Zelda because we're riding on Dragon Zelda. And we end up in like a big cloud column where none of the other background stuff that we were seeing before matters anymore. We are now kind of suspended at time. In fact, Link ends up floating above the dragon, pretty much standing on air as if kind of pulled out of time for this event. And we see Link still examining his arm when a spirit, Rauru, and Sonia appear. And as Link is apparently like pointing at Zelda and willing some power in her direction, they both lend their power to assist him, and a much larger yellow glowing rejuvenating beam comes out towards the Dragon Zelda, and then everything kind of flashes out to white, and Zelda is returned, and she is falling through the sky right in front of Link. And Link also loses his shirt for some reason,
And his arm comes back
and his arm comes back
out of nowhere.
And we have what could only be known as skydiving simulator. Similar to the beginning of the game, we have to dive for Zelda and make sure that she does not fall to the ground.
Yeah, so this once again, just like we saw the torch on the way down into the chasm, this is like that. I honestly feel like that torch was a really cool detail that they put in just so that you remembered that moment of when Link didn't catch Zelda, so that you can then get to this emotional payoff of being able to actually dive down, reach out, and catch her while falling through the sky. And it's entirely like, it's like basically a playable cutscene. The first section, you gotta like dive down to her, and then the camera shifts into this, looking at the sunrise and them through it, and you have another button prompt, which I hate saying because it's, that's another immersion factor of it being a video game, but whatever. To actually reach out and catch Zelda, and you just catch her by the hand.
I messed that one up.
Did you really?
Yeah, because for some reason, I was expecting to have to keep hitting the button instead of hold it. So I hit it and let go, and then like a burst of wind came up and knocked Link like 15 to 20 feet back up in the air, and he's like, "Ah!" And then I had to get back down to her again, and then I held the button.
Oh, okay. So it didn't like You guys didn't like hit the ground or anything. It was just,
No, I don't even know if you can hit the ground. I'm kind of interested what
I
happens
don't-
if you just sort of fall.
I don't think you can. I think the whole reason the
I'm watching
camera
the video on this
shifts
now.
is so that they can give the illusion that you're still falling, even though you're not getting any closer to the ground. That's my guess on that. I think that's just like a dev trick. Like, hey, look, they're in their falling animation, but they're not actually falling. You just got to press the button to catch her first.
Mm-hmm.
Which
I mean,
is
you end up
clever.
falling into
Like,
water
that's a good way to
anyway,
do
so
it, right?
I
I
think
mean, it's
you
not.
both would have been safe.
It's not like Link pulls out his glider. He just is like, well, there's a puddle, and we know how that works. So you take Zelda by the hand, you pull her into an embrace, and then you splash down into a puddle. Both of you head first.
Yeah, and that puddle was like the size of the explosion was like the size of like 10 C4s going off at the same time with how fast they hit the water.
Yeah, that, I mean, to be clear, if you go find that pond in the game at a different time, it's not that deep. Like, even if the water was going to break your fall, it wasn't going to break it enough to keep you from hitting bottom. Just saying. I mean, we already talked about the physics of this, like episode 1, but what? I mean, I
You
think
just recalled through the ground a little bit. It's fine.
yeah, it's fine. It's fine. It's Zelda. It's an established fact. You can just land in water and it's fine. So you do.
He also like cupped Zelda in a way that would like like he like cupped her head and like kind of tucked her in to his body and like kind of hit the water first to like break the water while she was like kind of like in him, like above him, like he was cupping over her. I don't know if you remember that, but it was really interesting, that little detail,
Yeah,
kind of like
it
he
was
broke her
hard to
fall.
make out the angles with, like, I guess, sorry, it's hard to make out the actual positions of them with the camera angles that I got, but I don't doubt what you're saying. It just, I didn't notice that, I guess.
Well, his job is to protect her after all. I mean, he's got to do his job.
Yeah, so after this big splash, Link fireman carries her out of the water basically. She comes to and has this whole moment of, how am I here? Wait, I already know. I felt this warm embrace and I came back to consciousness basically. It was like I was
And
sleeping this whole time.
She sees the Master Sword and is like, it's been repaired. And that's like, she 100% knows, like, it's over.
Yeah, she's like, basically my plan worked is what that felt like to me, of like,
Mm-hmm.
like I didn't know if it was gonna. I was just trying my best, but it seems like it all worked out. And the Demon King's finally gone.
Kind of made me wonder, when she was a dragon, like she didn't know what happened, but the dragon was protecting Link out of like willpower, you could maybe say, because she wasn't really. We learned now that she doesn't remember any of it. She wasn't actually conscious, so it was just like sheer willpower of her will
Yeah.
to protect Link.
The game breaks its own lore for the sake of that final battle. Because even Ganondorf, right before he does it, says he's going to give up his very self, which should mean giving up his evil motives, giving up like his mind to attack things. Like all of that should go away when you draconify.
And hold up.
But it didn't.
I'm gonna super nerd it here for a second. So, since Zelda's been flying around in the air for thousands of years with the Master Sword stuck in her forehead, it's not impossible to imagine that the Master Sword's desire to defeat everything evil has seeped into Zelda's dragon form. And so because that happened, the dragon kind of just acted on its own and started attacking the evil that was Ganondorf.
All right, and that has been A4NB4Y. I'm just
kidding. But why did Ganondorf attack back?
Because you were trying to kill him. I'm sure that if like
But she what? Like
because
the first thing she did was just fly up and dodge around him. Like Dragon Zelda never actually attacks the demon dragon.
Well, if my theory is right, which it's not, but if my theory is right, then maybe Ganondorf's evil dragon sensed the light left from the Master Sword inside of the Zelda dragon and hated that. It was at that point you could almost say that like it was the fight between good and evil, where Zelda represents the light and good, and Ganondorf represents the dark and evil, and they were kind of naturally pitted against each other. But that still doesn't make sense as to why Zelda's dragon like literally only helped Link the entire time, didn't actually do any fighting, was like, let me just take you up here, buddy. Oh, I'll catch you, don't worry, I'll take you back up there again.
Yeah, that
You
was kind of
also-
my thought on it too, was like you have a dragon that is powered on light, which is supposed to be the power to dispel or destroy evil. And then you have a dragon that's straight up evil. So they should kind of recognize the opposing power and become the Ouroboros that we've been seeing everywhere, right?
Speaking of that, Ganon actually does go Ouroboros at one point in the fight and eats his own tail and starts flying in a ring.
But that's not two dragons, though.
It's not two dragons, but he Ouroboroses himself.
Yeah. But then maybe it's like the stones themselves are like part of the reason they're in conflict. Because the other dragons never fight. I mean, maybe the other dragons really didn't ever draconify with stones, but
I was gonna say, if you remember in Breath of the Wild, it's not impossible for a dragon to be manipulated by an outside force because was it Lineru was corrupted by it's not Gloom, Malice.
by Malice.
So it's not impossible to say that the dragons can't be influenced by secret stones, which is probably why they were fighting. Which, yeah, they're just probably like at each other. Like they were also,
Well,
if
I
you think
wonder
about it,
if-
two of the same secret stone. So it's like kind of like if you think about it, it's like only one can exist. Like so one had to survive. So they basically were copies of each other. So they had to fight anyway. If you think
Yeah,
about it.
I almost wonder because they never fight directly. Like even after the initial cutscene, the demon dragon never actually goes after the Zelda dragon, and the Zelda dragon never actually does anything directly against the demon dragon. Like they both are just after Link. Like one is trying to help Link, and the other one's trying to attack Link. And so I kind of wonder if that's more the extent of the will, like when Zelda draconified, the only thing on her mind was I need to help Link defeat this evil. And then when Ganondorf draconified, the only thing on his mind at the time was I want to defeat Link and turn the world to darkness.
Yeah.
So they both
so-
kind of had motivations towards Link when it happened. So maybe that's kind of how this fight takes place, is they're both enacting those final wills.
I can see that.
Yeah, it was like the secret stone willed their last thoughts to their dragon form.
We might be onto
Nice.
something.
I think we
All right.
are.
So back to wherever we were in the cutscene. I think we're at Zelda's back awake, and she's like, I understand what happened, right?
Yep.
And then she gives you this big congratulations. She's like, you did it. It's amazing. And she would be crying, except they don't animate that. Instead, they just let the makeup do the work, kind of like they did in the movies that we watched before. And it's at a very emotional scene. Right, especially after going through that cinematic high point that was that fight. And then the catching and everything. I mean, this scene, this whole finale has at this point gone from adrenaline to all the feelings. And we finally get to roll credits, I guess, after
I
that.
mean, they definitely outdid themselves from Breath of the Wild. I mean, the whole, I guess the castle room fight was cool the first time because we never, got to see the old castle room up until that point. And I guess Calamity Ganon was all right, but like this just 50 times blew that out of the water. Like that was pale in comparison to this.
Yeah.
Makes it look like a joke.
I think the payoff at the end of Breath of the Wild, like the big scene I remember the most, was like Zelda riding forward on a horse with the Triforce in her hand, basically, and kind of destroying the demon pig Ganon in that moment. Like that whole scene was kind of the epic payoff. This one, there's just way more emotional depth to it, and I mean, you can tell they're really playing for the people who care about Zelda and Link's relationship more than ever before. And it's just, I don't know, it's a really cool. It's like they took the notes from Skyward Sword and said, "Hey, like we can do this kind of ending again. We can do the big fight right before the actual boss. We can do like the emotional connections between our main characters. We can even have like the side characters be somewhat useful and meaningful in the fights at the end, you know, things that Breath of the Wild just didn't have." And I think that it really worked.
Yeah, definitely had a lot more character development.
I'll say they didn't have a Groose character. They really could have used one, but yeah, other than that,
Hero of Hyrule. No, I just remembered now you brought up that kind of point of the Triforce. It's really odd they never, outside of pictography, did any lore, even ancient lore on the Triforce.
yeah,
It was
they
just cut.
kind of just abandoned the idea of the Triforce in this one. I think the only hint towards the Triforce was Zelda having an unusually like complex. You have light and time powers, and then blasting the Moldugas with it. I think that was the only hint of there being Triforce power at play. Other than that, we haven't heard one lick about the Triforce, and Ganondorf wasn't even after it. He just wanted that stone, and he got it.
Maybe that's how Ganondorf mastered the stone so easily. Maybe it was the power of the Triforce, and that's why Link was the one who defeated him. All three of the key players there are Triforce players.
I'm just imagining right now, like Ganondorf's ancestral Ganondorfs, like in the past, or like let's say for instance, Demise or someone was talking to Ganondorf, like giving him instructions, like you need the Triforce. It is the only way to stop Rauru and Zelda. And he's like, I don't know what you're talking about, old man, but I'm gonna take that secret stone. And Demise is just like, ugh, kids.
They never listen.
They never learn.
I put part of my spirit into this reincarnation. I try to tell him, hey, you get this, you'll be set in life. He says, forget you, Dad.
I'm going to get them stones.
He wants a fancy new rock.
He wants a pet rock instead.
All I ever did was provide for him. This is how he treats me. This is how he thanks me. Forget him. All right. So this isn't actually the end of the game, but the final ending. I don't know if you guys stuck around to the end of the credits scene. I actually don't know if it's a secret cutscene or not, because there was one in Breath of the Wild.
I think it was secret because I watched all the cutscenes and I did not see anything at the end, probably because I didn't find all the memories and stuff.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I skipped the creds and nothing popped up, so this is news to me.
Okay, so there is one more scene at the end. I don't know what the trigger for it is. I don't know if you have to get all the memories. I don't know if you have to do all the shrines. In Breath of the Wild, it was shrines. Like I said, I just don't know. But it's not that big of a deal either. It's Mineru's send off. So the whole crew, all the sages, and Pura, for some reason, are up on the Temple of Time. Basically up on the central. I don't even remember the central island, right? The Sky Island,
Plateau Island.
Yeah,
Great Sky Island.
The Great Sky Island. Every time I forget, and every time one of y'all remembers, and I'm grateful.
I only remember when I hear Great Plateau. I'm like, oh yeah, they just took Great and made it Sky Island instead of Plateau.
Yeah, so they're all up at the Temple of Time, and somebody, I think Pura's like, yeah, I never understood how such a great landmass could be elevated so high up in the sky, but now I understand it or something. She's like, she basically said she figured out how it all works with the Zonai and where they came from. But then they get into this other discussion where Mineru's like, I basically decided it's time for me to go. And they're like, no, don't go. Like, we still, care about you and yada yada. And she's like, well, you don't need me anymore. You guys are gonna be all right. It's time. And so everybody kind of, has this little moment, and Mineru disappears off into the sky, basically. I mean, she doesn't like float away. She just kind of goes more transparent and kind of particulates, And then Zelda has this moment where she makes a very small pep talk to the rest of the group, and then they all swear fealty to her. Basically just like the ancient sages did back in the day.
Hey.
They all decide to vow their loyalty to Princess Zelda, except for Pura for some reason. Like, Link is in the group. He doesn't say anything, obviously. But the rest of them all have this thing that they try to say in unison, and they first mess it up. When they get to Princess Zelda, they all say it at different speeds, and it just sounds like a jumbled mess. So they all look at each other like, oh, we messed up. So then they take a beat and they try again and they do it right. And that's kind of the end. They all start walking forward, and they're a big happy family of sages. Once again, Pura for some reason just hangs back by a pillar and doesn't come out. So she's very distinctly not becoming the replacement for Mineru, which I think is a mistake. I think it was right there. Like, they had it. They had it right there. They could have been like, by the way, like, Pura is going to take on that secret stone or whatever. Instead, they just show the robot pieces just lying on the ground. Like, there's no longer a Mineru in this. I guess it's just a pile of Zonai parts now.
Oh.
Yeah. So that, to me, was disappointing to watch. I was like, you even had her on the Great Sky Island with everybody else, but you couldn't say that. You couldn't make that connection, even though it's obviously there. Like, what are you doing? So, I don't know. That was just my feelings on it, but yeah, the end scene is goodbye to Mineru, and also we are swearing loyalty to Zelda, and that's kind of all there is to it.
The end.
The end.
Fiend.
If there is not a DLC
Nintendo
with
has
no
my
DLC.
boy
that there will be
Cass,
No DLC.
I want
No
my money
DLC.
back, refund. I was lied to.
You see, when all the islands popped up, Cass was flying, and
Oh no.
Don't. He's
It
got
was-
a family.
it was too
Can't
bad.
be saying
Yeah,
things like that.
he wasn't really there for his family originally, anyway. So
No.
Wait, he came back for like 4 years, then was like, all right, I'm done.
he went out to get milk from the bird store for quite a while. Then he came back for a little bit, and then he's like, "All right, now I'm just gonna go flying." And then the island.
Yeah, it's really jacked up that they decided to make his kids like a big part of the story of Rito Village in the winter, when they're like,
Yeah.
oh, us kids got to take care of the village. Like, we got to make things work. And they go and they're like building arrows, and they're coming up with how they're going to eat and do stuff. And then it's like, oh, y'all had a dad and he was pretty cool in the first game, but now he's just gone and nobody's going to talk about that.
Yeah,
What?
not one Rito mentioned it.
Not
Except
one.
for
I mean,
Pen.
Penn was like, oh yeah, there's this old bard that used to hang out on Washa's Bluff. I'm gonna go hang out there. But that's it. That's like the only reference we get to him. Disappointing. More disappointment. I can't say I was disappointed in the end of the game overall, though. I mean, I did say that it was a masterpiece.
I'm actually
But-
happy with it, and I also feel like
Yeah.
there wouldn't be a place for DLC in this game since it kind of completes the story. I feel like the only DLC they could really do is like something extra with the Zonai, like more building pieces, maybe like a Zonai dungeon where you can get more Zonai build stuff. Like that's
Yeah,
really all I
bro.
see.
Put in a Zonai dungeon where it shows like a hologram of Raru, and he's like, Link, in case you wanted to improve your skills even further to defend Hyrule from future threats. And this big dungeon, like, they kind of you could do something like that. I mean, they probably won't because they said they won't, but they could.
Yeah.
I mean, they could do anything. It could be like outside of a bunch of key chasms. Guess who it is? It's your boy Cass. And what's he doing? He's singing songs about the ancient Zonai that he just learned while he was studying abroad, and that's why you didn't see him for the whole main game. But now he's back and he's learned a bunch of ancient history and he's here to tell you the story. And by the way, halfway down the chasm, there's a new cave that tells you more about it too. And that's the challenge. You got to go down there, do some Zonai stuff, come back up. He's going to sing a song for you.
You gotta fight a Flux Construct 6 as the final boss.
And one of them that tells the story of how Mineru's secret stone gets passed down and how it has to be someone who is like of sharp mind and of like eternal soul and then be
And
like
of
all
a
right.
body that's changing ages.
Right, that's how the soul's eternal because it's just kind of like keeping herself alive with tech. I don't know. Gamify it. Who cares? And then it would be.
Give him a motorcycle. Who cares?
I don't need a motorcycle, but the other stuff sounds good. I need a loft wing. One of the caves has a loft wing in it that we gotta free from a cage by smacking the boards with the goddess tornado, and then we can fly it around and not need to use a bike anymore. Boom! I just made like a $30 DLC that everyone will buy.
Hey.
So, like, what happened to Zelda's secret stone after she turned back into a human? Like, is that...
It went back on her necklace.
Oh, did it?
Yeah.
Okay, I wasn't sure. I didn't pay attention to that. Like, is this gonna, like, be a later situation? It's on her neck. Because now we're down one secret stone because we don't know where Raru's is. So there's even more DLC now.
No, Raru's was Zelda's.
But Zelda's was Sonia's.
No, Ganondorf's was Sonia's. Ganondorf killed Sonia, took her stone, and then Raru stuck his hand with his own secret stone to Ganondorf. So when you find Ganondorf at the beginning of the game in the depths, he has one in his forehead and one attached to the hand that's attached to his chest. The one that's attached to the hand is the one that falls, and Zelda takes it, and then gets shot to the past with that stone. And then Ganondorf just kind of keeps the one that he has stuck to his forehead.
Are you sure? I
Yes.
remember going through the like wiki pages for the secret stones like many times when I was doing the chakra research, and it says that the secret stone of time, which is the one that Queen Sonia has, is also the same one that Zelda has.
Misinformation.
She has time and light powers. And light is the one that's associated with Raru. Time is associated with Sonia, but she has both. And I don't think that's stone dependent. I think that's user dependent.
Yeah, that's interesting. Oh, I see what it's saying. Okay. So Zelda's powers transmutated King Raru's Stone of Light, similar to how Ganondorf transmutated Sonia's Stone of Time, and Zelda transmutated her Stone of Light into a Stone of Time, sending her back in time. Okay, got it. Why did you make it so convoluted, Nintendo?
Because she's Hylia.
Secret Stone.
I'm already
Imprisoning
done with the
war?
story.
And we are.
We are done with the story. So, if you guys don't mind, I guess we'll put a cap on this season.
Cap it, bro. Cap it like crazy.
Goodbye.
All right,
Farewell.
everybody. Thank you for listening to our Tears of the Kingdom season. Next episode, we will have some kind of wrap up, recap. We'll do some looking back at what our predictions for this game was and how wrong most of us were. And we'll introduce some basis information for the Minish Cap, which will be our next game. And it'll be a great time one way or another. So hope to see you all there, or, you know, have y'all listen then. And you can catch us next time on A for No, B for Yes.
I'm eating jerky.
Did you get all